Раз, два, три. Раз, два, три.
Алло, алло. Алло. Что происходит? Почему не слышу? Алло, алло, алло.
This is interpreter speaking, testing the English language channel. How do you hear me?
إسلامية جامعة بلغارة الإسلامية، وهو معنا اليوم كذلك ويشارك في المؤتمر. Хватит, Рамиль Миргаевич? А то я уже устала говорить по-арабски. Давайте по-турецки теперь уже. Так он придет живьем? Так, сейчас. Сейчас я пока тогда... Рамиль, я пока это... Или еще... Так я уж уговорилась уже, все рассказала, все секреты свои. А на каких еще? На английском тоже надо? Ага. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to greet you today in a very hospitable city of Kazan. Well, we are very happy to be today with you in this conference, which is quite unique, but getting a kind of tradition for Kazan Federal University. Я уже поговорила по-английски, хватит. Не, мне просто надо текст же посмотреть на Ляховитна. Если что-то, вы скажите на Ляховитна, если надо будет, я еще поговорю.
So if you need me, I can speak more. We're just testing now, ladies and gentlemen, just for you to know.
Привет, мой дорогой.
С испанским.
Я только по-итальянски могу. Сеньоры и сеньоры.
Уважаемые коллеги, меня организаторы слышат? Это Абрамова Ирина Олеговна.
Да, здравствуйте, здравствуйте, вас прекрасно слышно. Спасибо большое, что подключились.
Так, я
Да.
просто хочу предупредить, что по регламенту я выступаю с 10:10 до 10:15. В 10:30, поскольку я вижу, что вовремя вы начнете, я вынуждена буду покинуть заседание. И если я не выступлю, просто передайте от меня большой привет участникам, потому что у меня в 11 начинается следующее мероприятие очное. Я просто физически не успею туда доехать.
Спасибо вам огромное, что вы с нами, и мы в любом случае постараемся сейчас вообще придумать так, чтобы вы выступили еще раньше.
Все, спасибо большое, спасибо.
Спасибо, Ирина Олеговна, вам. Спасибо, дорогая.
Анна Алексеевна, доброе утро. Доброе утро.
Уважаемые друзья, трехминутная готовность, и мы начнем чуть-чуть пораньше, поскольку...
Ladies and gentlemen, we will start in 3 minutes since everybody is coming sharp. So we'll start maybe a few minutes earlier. So please be ready to join in the sessions in 3 minutes.
Уважаемые коллеги, у нас вот к спикерам, по поводу спикеров исключения, но большая
Dear colleagues, we have an exceptional request to our speakers. Make sure that we are working in a hybrid format, that it takes wear the masks for those our participants who are participating offline. So please put on the masks as part of our anti-pandemic requirements.
Буквально через минуту мы начнем, но прежде чем мы начнем,
So
небольшая...
we'll start shortly in a minute, but we would like to make some small technical remarks. Those who will need to listen to translation, you can choose that option in the Zoom platform. For the Russian language, you need to find this icon, the globe, and you need to select the channel you need. So you can choose Russian, English, or the Arabic. And as you probably know, there are some technical issues, technical hiccups. If you want to listen to Arabic language, you need to choose the Spanish language.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just wanted to give you some information about the technical details. So for the Russian language, you can press the button 1, it's or Russian language. For English, 2 or English. And for Arabic, we have Spanish track, but on the Spanish track, we have Arabic. أصدقاء الأعزاء، نرحب بكم للغة الروسية. يمكنكم أن يفتح الطريقة الترجمة للغة الروسية للغة الإنجليزية بالاسم الإنجليزي، ولكن للغة العربية نحن نستخدم طريقة ترجمة إسباني. وأهلا وسهلا بكم في الترجمة الإسبانية باللغة العربية. Дорогие друзья, разрешите поприветствовать вас всех и поздравить.
Dear friends, we would like to welcome everyone and congratulate you on the opening of the second International Scientific Conference, Russia Africa, Politics, Economy, History and Culture. That is organized in Kazan, and as you might understand, for the second time in Kazan Federal University. And it's my great pleasure to know that this forum was highly recognized since its first edition, and it is organized for the second time on the auspices of the Secretary of the Partnership Forum Russia-Africa, headed by the Ambassador for Special Affairs by Oleg Ozerov. And this time, Forum is welcoming 146 participants representing more than 25 countries of the world. And among them, who participated in our forum, not only those who represent the academic community, not only the diplomats, ambassadors, but first of all, our young friends, who sooner or later will represent the core community for interaction with the African countries. As of the date, as part of our conference program, we planned the discussion on a number of issues that first and foremost related to relations between Russia and African countries. And the forum will feature the leading organizations and experts specialized in African studies and those who are involved in the Russian-African cooperation, the Institute of Oriental Studies, Moscow State University, St. Petersburg State University, Moscow State University of International Relations, Minister of Foreign Relations. And before that, I would like to say that besides the plenary session that we are participating in, there will be a number of 9 scientific sections, and I would like just outline its names, some sessions that you might know and you would like to join. So African studies, studying the African cultures and languages, Russia, Africa, interconnections in the history and the modernity, the search of the Africa, Arab world in Africa, Algeria and Africa, the modern African countries in the modern conditions, geopolitical and geoeconomics of the African countries and the globalization conditions. And since I'm gratifying to open this session and to be part of it, to participate in it, it is of special importance to have the people who are very much busy, who are involved in this track of the African-Russian track and this working in this domain. And since I'm the person, and since the person still find the time to be with us and to make the contribution, I'd like to give the floor to the director of the Institute of African Studies, the director of the Presidium of the Russian Academy of Sciences. There is It's a lot of titles that that person has. It's a big friend of Kazan Federal University. Last time she was here offline, but this time she'll make the presentation online. I would like to give floor to Irina Abramova. Dear moderator, dear guests, colleagues, it's my great pleasure to welcome you at the second International Scientific Conference, Russia Africa, Politics, Economy, History and Culture. And it's gratifying to know that I have such an opportunity to make a presentation here. Our distinguished moderator said that the major part of our audience is made up of the young people, and it's very important because the population of Africa, 60% of that population is made up of young people aged up to 25 years. So it's the future of African continent. So it's very important to have the context established between young people, between the representatives of the young generation, that in the future will get involved in the addressing those problems that our country is faced with, and as well as the African continent. And I would like to speak about why the Russian-African relations are so important, both for Russia and for Africa. I spoke about it many times. I just enumerate major reasons. It's the huge potential that Africa has nowadays in terms of the resource base and in terms of the demographic context. That's the continent of the 21st century that is gaining momentum nowadays. And interaction with this continent is putting Russia into a specific position, into a special context, because behind this sympathy and because the sympathy and the good attitude of this African continent, it's something that everybody's fighting for. China, US, Brazil, Turkey, Arab countries, and Russia. It is very important for Russia to find its place, its niche, and what it can, how it can contribute to this African continent. And in my opinion, what should make Russia different from all other countries is their commitment, is our commitment to share with Africa our technologies, to transfer the technology, because the technologies, that's something Africa needs nowadays. The technologies, which might be very relevant here, I'm speaking about the agricultural technologies and medical technologies and nuclear and chemical technologies, as well as life cycle technologies in terms of the water treatment, air treatment, and purification. We all have it here in Russia. Now regions, not only Moscow and St. Petersburg, but regions as well, and regional business are very much interested in sharing, in transferring their technologies into the African continent. And here I speak not only about sharing the goods and giving the technologies, but we'd like to localize these technologies on the African continent, so contributing this way to its active development. And I would like to say that very important issue here, why it is important for us to study and learn Africa and its history. It's the history of colonialism. No matter how much we speak about it, and no matter what we think, that quite often our political leaders say such words as "we're not Africans." Well, the thing is that we face ourselves in a situation when we are rowing, sailing in one and the same boat, because the whole history of colonial development that our African friends were fighting against, basically it is very important for Russia, because the methods of the colonial oppression that acquire new forms nowadays, they are used against our country. And we can see that is happening nowadays. We're losing, with the collapse of USSR, we lost part of our territories, and we lost major part of our resources that are very important for production of new advanced goods and services. So that's uranium and some other precious metal and some other ores, something that we lost as that they become part of the republics. So we have the narrowing this language space, because we see the implosion, and is the Russian language is impressed, and we see in the scientific life we're using the foreign language, first of all the English language, and we see that our national identity is being aggressively attacked when we, thanks to using the internet technologies, we are being imposed the views and ideas that are alien to us. and we see that every person is being addressed, being attacked, his consciousness is being attacked. It's not, I think that's the new colonialism of the 21st century, because we see the new ideals and new philosophies that are not natural to us. Not to say let alone the economic sanctions that are imposed against the Russian Federation and those sanctions that were imposed on the African continent in history. Not to mention the economic agenda with its nobility and its high fly status. It is built that the major price that is paid for this economical transfer will be paid by the countries that have the resources and energy resources, and both Africa and Russia. So we see more and more in the situation that we share with African countries. And on the one hand, it's a challenge for us. On the other, it's an opportunity through the development to reach a new level, to bring it to a new stage, become stronger and more powerful. And I think that experience of our relations that we enjoyed back in USSR is very important, but we need to find new forms and new platforms of cooperation that would be important, mutually important and beneficial for us and for our African friends. I would like to welcome all the participants of our conference, wish them successful work, and I do hope that the second summit of Russia Africa, which by itself is a unique phenomenon, because we don't have the summit Russia Europe, Russia Latin America. This summit is truly unique one, and we hope that during this summit we'll discuss some specific solutions and we find the solutions to the specific problems, and we will go further in our relations. And you, youth, can make a very substantial contribution to its success. Thank you very much. Irina Abramov, thank you very much for your welcome address, for the words that you mentioned. Basically, you outlined the major tracks, our major issues that we'll be discussing and around which we'll be evolving and working during our conference. And something that was mentioned in the previous edition and in this larger scale format, they will be claimed and discussed. Thank you very much. And I would like to mention one thing. Irina said that we have to bring it to a new level, bring our relations to a new level in terms of finding new niches and new opportunities and some potential that hasn't been tapped yet. And I think Kazan is one of the first to feel this need and responded to this challenge, to this request. And that's why I would like to once again I'd like to thank Kazan Federal University for the opportunity that we have this conference in our country, and this conference that was initiated in terms of the cooperation in the educational and cultural sphere, and this conference was initiated by Kazan Federal University and Institute of International Relations. I would like to give the floor to the Vice Rector of the Kazan Federal University for scientific work, Dmitry Tayursky, for his welcoming address, and so he could read out the welcoming address from the Professor Ilshad Gafurov, the rector of the Kazan Federal University, academician of Russian Academy of Sciences and Tatarstan Academy of Sciences. Professor Gafurov, please. Dear Anna Alexeyevna, dear ambassadors and guests, participants of the conference, on my behalf, on behalf of the Kazan Federal University, it's my great pleasure to welcome you in one of the oldest universities of Russia. And may I read out the welcoming address from the rector of Kazan Federal University, Ilshad Gafurov. Nowadays, he is actually on leave. Dear participants of the forum, dear guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you here in the Kazan Federal University. The Russia Africa that is organized between the first and the second summits of Russia Africa. It brought together the leading experts from Russia, the CIS countries, and a number of African states as well. More than 100 participants will work in the online format in different sections that Irina mentioned, considering a wide range of issues related to the history and the current state of the Russian-African cooperation. It's gratifying that this year we see young participants, students, and school children representing various regions of our country. I also hope that you will have pleasant impressions and memories about our today's forum, about our university, the city of Kazan, and you will again take part in the next editions of the conferences of Kazan University. Today, the head of the Secretariat of the Russia Africa Partnership Forum is taking part in this event that is preparing for the second Russia Africa Summit edition in 2022. The ambassador at large of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Oleg Ozerov, as well as the Mr. Mohammed Babasali, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Cameroon to the Russian Federation. Mr. Bin Salim Tarak, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Tunisian Republic to the Russian Federation. Mr. Shehu Abdullahi, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the Russian Federation, as well as representatives of the embassies of Sultanate Oman, of Kingdom of Bahrain, ex-ambassador of the Republic of Benin, and Mr. Gabriel Anison Kochofa, who once made a lot for the cooperation with the Kazan Federal University and the African countries. Our forum was attended by also Irina Abramova, director of the Institute of African Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Evgeny Primakov, head of the Russian agency of the Россотрудничество, to Commonwealth of Independent States compatriots living abroad and international humanitarian cooperation, who joined our forum. Thank you very much, Irina Olegovna, for such a warm welcoming address. I also would like to pay respect to Ramazan Abdulatifov, permanent representative of the Russian Federation to the Organization of Islamic Cooperation in the Jeddah in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a great friend of Tatarstan and Kazan Federal University. And also would like to welcome Farid Muhammedshin, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary, member of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, who is also a great friend of our university. Dear friends, nowadays, any such platforms are very important for the exchange of views on the processes taking place in Africa. This revives the interest in Africa and African problems among the scientific communities and students. And I'm so glad that this task is addressed by our university for the second year in a row, bringing together the leading scientists and experts in the field of African studies. And I'd like to say that this year the number of participants has considerably increased, which testifies to the success of the last year's first Russia Africa Forum at our university. And we see that the Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences of African Studies, the Institute of General History of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Moscow State University named after Lomonosov, St. Petersburg State University, as well as representatives of other scientific and educational institutions of our country and CIS countries. We would like to thank our participants from African and Middle East countries who submitted their applications to participate in the conference. The work to regain the positions that were lost by Russian and African continents is not easy. It's very challenging. It's very easy to destroy, but it's much harder to create and recreate it. It's necessary to train essentially new personnel in the field of studying African languages, cultures, economics, and politics. We are grateful to our metropolitan centers for the African Studies, Institute for African Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Moscow State University, named after Lomonosov, and St. Petersburg State University, and the Institute of History of the Russian Academy of Sciences, who, despite the hard times, managed to preserve the National School of African Studies. It's important to train highly qualified specialists and professionals in these fields, and it's very important to dedicate the needed attention. And we're experiencing the lack of these specialists, and believe that the Kazan Federal University, as the bearer of these traditions for more than 200 years, will be one of the strongest contributors to this very important mission. We have to work on creating new training programs and retraining programs aimed at the in-depth studies of the African continent, its history and culture, and also train specialists not only for the center, but also for the other regional needs. Kazan Federal University was the center for training the specialists originally coming from African countries. And today, Kazan Federal University has 438 students from more than 40 countries of Africa. We work closely with Algeria, Egypt, Zambia, Morocco, Tunisia, and many other countries. And in the end of my presentation, I would like to wish you, dear participants of the second Kazan International Scientific Forum, Russia, Africa, fruitful work for the benefit of the friendly relations between Russia and Africa, developing of the Russian-African studies, and inter-regional relations featuring the Tatarstan Republic specialists. I would like to once again for your kind attention, for responding to our invitation. I would like to assure you that Kazan University is ready to participate in academic, inter-university, and in other events initiated by our friends. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. And we would like to thank Mr. Rector for these kind words. And this is true because Kazan University is responsible for training specialists in many fields. Also those professionals who will represent our country on the African continent, and the demand for such specialists is growing. And the ambassador at large, Mr. Ozerov, has numerously mentioned that, and that was his initiative to create the Center for Cooperation between African countries and Russia, and to make this cooperation efficient and unique. And I'm absolutely sure that Kazan University can play a key role in this process. And I know for sure that Oleg Ozerov would like to join us today, but I'm
Увидим, в каком формате. Итак, посол по особым поручениям Министерства иностранных дел Российской Федерации, руководитель секретариата форума партнерства Россия Африка Олег Борисович Озеров.
Format. So Ozerov, Mr. Oleg Ozerov, Ambassador at Large of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, head of the Secretariat of the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum. Russia-Africa politics, culture, history. I would like to greet all the participants of the forum on my behalf, and I would like to wish you success. The second forum, Russia-Africa, will take place soon. It will be in the beginning of the 2022, and for sure we have to be ready for it. And it's a great pleasure that Kazan University pays attention to this important issue. One conference took place last year. It was dedicated to African and African countries and Russia partnership, and that was a great honor for me to take part in that conference. Unfortunately, this year I am not able to join the work of our colleagues, but we have a chance to interact via internet, and I would like to say that for Russia, it's extremely important to get back to the African continent, strengthening its role there. And without all the issues that you are about to discuss at this conference, it won't be possible. And the second thing that I would like to raise your attention to is the role of Russian regions, and especially the Republic of Tatarstan, in strengthening relations with African countries. Tatarstan is a powerful in economic and political meaning, and for African countries, it's very important to attract such partners and to attract such companies like Tatneft and Kamaz and other manufacturers. We are absolutely sure that African countries seek possibilities to cooperate with Russia, and they are welcomed on the African countries. And we hope that the conference, the forum, will be able to strengthen these relations. Unfortunately, of course, it's very important to focus on historical and cultural issues as well. Russia should know a lot about the history and culture of Africa in order to be able to join the needs, to be able to cooperate in scientific and cultural fields, to develop relations with educational and research centers, to know about diverse and very interesting history and culture of African countries. Unfortunately, we do not know that much about African culture as we know about Western European culture, for example. And that's why such conferences where it's possible to get knowledge about all these fields are extremely important and can develop relations with the African continent. Thank you very much for your kind invitation, and I wish you all good luck and success and fruitful cooperation. Thank you very much, Mr. Ozerev. And I would like to thank the representatives of African countries' missions in the Russian Federation. And I would like to thank Dmitry Tayursky, that he has already mentioned that. And I would like to thank the ambassador of the Republic of Cameroon and Mr. Tarek Ben Salim, the ambassador of Tunisia, and our big friend, Mr. Gabriel Aniset Kachofa, who is the ex-ambassador and is still taking place in our hearts. And it's a great pleasure that Oman is one of the countries that always works hard on strengthening relations with Russia. And we have the representatives of Oman Embassy of Oman, who are big friends of our university and always help us in organizing educational exchange. And now let me give a floor to a person who is working closely with all the African countries, the director of the Institute of International Relations of Kazan Federal University, Mr. Ramil Khairudinov, and he will read the greeting words from Mr. Muhammedshin, the member of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much. We are so glad to see you here today. And we're thankful for all the issues that you study closely and for your interest in strengthening relations with the Russian Federation, working hard on developing our friendly relations and to develop them not only in education and culture, but also in politics, economics, and diplomacy. And I would like to add that the Institute of International Relations pays close attention to African studies, and we would like to get on the new level, not only educational and research level, but also the expert and analytical level in order to train specialists, professionals who will continue working in your countries. And now let me read the welcoming words from Farid Muhammedshin, who is the member of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation. Distinguished guests, I would love to welcome you, the participants of the Second International Scientific Forum, Russia Africa. Relations between Russia and African countries have a long history and have always been distinguished by their versatility. Back in the second half of the 20th century, Soviet engineers and specialists took an active part in implementation of a number of large industrial projects in many countries of the continent. Africa today remains one of the priorities of Russian foreign policy, strengthening foreign economic, scientific, and technical cooperation. Africa is currently the world leader in terms of consumption growth. The continent is confidently moving along the path of political, social, economic, scientific, and technological development. Agriculture, chemical industry, and agricultural technologies, oil refining, and other industries, energy and nuclear technologies are developing rapidly. In the nearest future, it will be possible to ensure strengthening of ties between Russia and the countries of the continent acting as a partner in a number of areas. These include projects for the supply of the latest Russian equipment for metal casts and mining enterprises, the development of a transport and logistics systems, including not only the supply of rolling stocks for railways, aircraft, and helicopters of various classes for various purposes, but also control and safety systems for the respective modes of transportation. In addition, Russia is interested in developing energy infrastructure in the countries of the African region, oil and gas, and generating capacities, including hydro and nuclear energy, in joint implementation of projects in renewable energy and hydropower, promoting water treatment technologies, ensuring food security, as well as developing a healthcare system. One of the priorities is traditionally personal training. In this, meaning educational programs, exchange and internship programs, as well as scholarship programs for African students who want to study in Russia are becoming very important. Training of professionals with knowledge of the language and possessing the competences necessary for the development of a particular industry is today one of the strategic goals. It's worth noting here the efforts of Kazan University in the implementation of these goals. Dear colleagues, Kazan Federal University, during the organization of the Second International Scientific Forum, Russia Africa, which is to be held in 2022, is becoming an important expert platform with participation of leading economists, international affairs experts, political scientists, and linguists. I'm supporting the forum, and I sincerely congratulate the organizers of the conference on holding such an important event in Kazan. I wish the participants fruitful work. Thank you, Ramil. And Farid Muhammedshin has just mentioned a number of important fields for further cooperation. For example, a number of exchange programs, internships, and scholarships. All these help to create the foundations for further development in the mentioned fields like agriculture, nuclear power, and in general for economic and not only economic cooperation. And I'm absolutely sure that Россотрудничество is one of the institutions that takes responsibility for this important field. They work hard and they open new offices, and especially on the territory of the African continent. As far as I know, there are representative offices in South Africa, in Tanzania, in Egypt and Morocco. And I guess that we'll have a chance to know more about that from our next speaker. And let me give a floor to Evgeny Primakov. Dear colleagues, it's my pleasure to welcome the organizers, participants, and guests of the International Scientific Conference, Russia, Africa, Politics, History, Economics, and Culture. I'm grateful to the Kazan Federal University, one of the educational and scientific centers, for the invitation and the opportunity to share within the expert audience some useful data. Today, the strengthening of Russian and African relations is becoming one of the priorities of Russia's foreign policy. It can be confirmed by dynamic development of political dialogue and the deepening of partnership and the trade and investment spheres. Military and technical projects are being implemented. Humanitarian cooperation is reaching a very high level. At the present time, Russia is actively working over the implementation of the decisions taken during the first ever Russia-Africa Summit. The Secretariat of the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum, as well as the Association for the Promotion of Economic Cooperation between the Russian Federation and African countries. Bilateral relations between Russia and African countries have never been darkened by the colonial past. They are based on trust, mutual respect, consideration of each other's interests, and a long history of cooperation. Россотрудничество has a network of Russian offices in 80 countries of the world. 8 of them are on the African continent, in countries such as Egypt, Zambia, Tunisia, Morocco, Congo, Tanzania. Our representatives works as part of the Russian embassy in the South Africa as well. I'm pleased to know that Russian education, which is exported by the Russian offices, is in serious demand on the African continent. Some of the figures: more than 17,000 students from Africa countries study in Russia every year, while the annual quota for African students tends to increase. In the next academic year, there will be 2,307 people studying in Russia. More than 300,000 specialists from African countries were trained in Soviet Union and later in the Russian Federation. Returning to their homes, former foreign students of Russian universities are part of the state scientific professional elite. They serve as a worthy support for the prosperity of their countries and also contribute to the strengthening of friendly ties with Russia. Working with the youth of foreign countries is one of the priorities of the Russian offices. We have tapped into the potential of the presidential program of short-term study tours to Russia of young leaders from foreign countries, which is definitely a new generation. Over the past decade, Russia has hosted 255 young, talented, and professional delegates from African countries. As part of another successful program of cultural and educational exchange programs for children of compatriots is Hello Russia program. Delegates from the African region visited their historical homeland. Our common task for the coming years is to bring the level cooperation between Russia and African countries to a new level that meets the challenges of the 21st century. Africa is a unique continent, and we are ready to contribute to this in every possible way. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Evgeny, and I'm absolutely sure that that's our task, to get cooperation between our countries onto a new level. And I'm absolutely sure that the governments of our countries will contribute into that, but there are many ways of for strengthening cooperation. And I'm so happy that Kazan University always supports us, and as well as Mr. Abdulatifov, our special representative at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And before I give him a floor, I would like to remind that today at 4 p.m. we'll have a roundtable discussion, and Mr. Abdulatifov will take part in that roundtable discussion. And Ramazan is actively developing this field, and he is working hard on eliminating consequences of neocolonialism that Ms. Abramova has already mentioned. So let me give a floor to our big friend, the big friend of African continent and all the nations that seek support, Mr. Ramazan Abdullatipov, Special Representative of the Russian Federation at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Now he's in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia.
Там что-то идет?
Вроде бы был Рамазан Гаджимурадович на связи.
As far as we know, he was online, but now we don't know what's going on. Then,
Что мы сможем подключить Рамазана Гаджимурадовича? Получается?
so can we bring him online? If not, then I would like to give the floor to our next speaker.
Коллеги, вот это и
So,
благо,
colleagues, maybe that's the benefit of our online meetings, and also that's the challenge for us, because online we can bring together the whole world, and now Mr. Abdullatipov in Jeddah. Some of them are in Africa, in Algeria, or in Egypt,
и мы можем всех собрать.
and we can bring them all together online, but sometimes we have some technical hiccups.
Передам слово нашему
I'd like to
следующему
give the
спикеру,
floor to our next speaker,
онлайн. Или всё-таки
who
у
is,
нас
oh,
Рамазан
we have
подключается?
Ramazan Gadjimurad here. Okay. I've been working with you for 30 minutes, guys. So it's our great honor to give the floor to you. It's my great pleasure to welcome you, Irina Alekseevna. It's my great pleasure to see you all, and it's my great pleasure to be here in line with such a big city as Kazan. And Kazan is truly the bearer of the light enlightenment in intelligence, and specifically Kazan Federal University as the oldest, one of the oldest universities of Russia, that makes a great contribution to foreign policy promotion of the Russian Federation. It's my great pleasure to welcome the participants of the conference. I would like to highlight the great contribution of Mr. Mohamedov, Mr. Primakov, Mr. Oleg Borisov, and Mr. Ozerov, and Islamic studies and African studies. There is a big number of countries in Africa are Muslim countries. And when you look and you see the condition of the 57 countries, as well as the rest African countries, you see that it's very saddening to know that we are speaking about decolonization for 60 years, but even today, it's very hard to find on the continents, to find a sovereign, independent states. You know, you can probably count, and that's very limited number of these sovereign independent states. And it speaks about the fact that this continent, here I'm speaking about the African continent, is actually so-called hostage of these negative implications of the colonial system. And we know that the collapse of the colonial system was connected, first of all, with the initiatives of the USSR, of the Soviet Union, and thanks to Russia, we saw the massive decolonization of the African countries, countries of Asia, Middle East, and many others. But along with that, as we can see at the modern stage, this process is not over yet. And here the director of the Institute of Africa said that we need to get actively involved, and Mr. Oleg Ozerov has mentioned that as well. But we need to influence not using the educational programs, but also using the technologies showing this cultural influence. And I liked very much that Mr. Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, in his presentation at the Valdai discussion club sessions, he said, and actually he repeated this statement, that modern model of capitalism that the whole world is following is not efficient anymore. I have been speaking about that for more than 10 years. I even wrote a book about that, which is called Sociocultural Model of the Russian Development in the 21st Century, where I prove that Russia needs to find its own way, its own model of development for our country. And it will serve as a role model for many countries, for African countries as well. So what can we offer to the developing countries, to the post-colonial countries, to the neo-colonial countries? So what do we want to offer? Some programs. It will not help. I would like to stress one more time that we need to offer a model, a comprehensive model of development. But to do that, specifically for African countries, we need to improve that model in our own country, first of all. In the beginning of 1990s, I witnessed how the Western countries, United States, Germany, France, they imposed that liberal market-based model of the country development that fundamentally contradicts our identity, our history, and our prospects. They impose that model that we are suffering to follow. And the president of Russia, making a lot of things, is also suffering being behind these model restrictions, trying to integrate, because we cannot align with it. So we must to pursue this Russian unique model of the development. So why did we see these countries being setting on free? Because we see that this happened during the USSR period. Thanks to that, even nowadays, Africa and Muslim world, Islamic countries, they need it. They need this new model of the development. Because otherwise, neo-colonialism will be a permanent phenomenon, a very permanent situation and context for these countries. We see these puppet governments imposed in every country, and they are putting into collision with their neighbors. They're intervening with the local things, local affairs. They're organizing coup d'etats, the national and regional conflicts, blackmailing, terrorism, and finally, the military intervention. So we speaking so in such a high profile, but we see to what condition this military intervention of the United States and their partnership resulted in Yemen and Libya, in Iraq, Syria, and many other countries, what they had to deal with as a result of this intervention. And it is done openly. And I think that we have to establish new movement for setting these countries free, specifically the African countries, to free them of this neo-colonialism phenomenon. They always find the reason. Our counterparts in the Western world, they speak about democracy, the human rights, and many other things. It's a very convenient to follow this path, and you can easily intervene into the internal domestic situation in any country. So we have to stop the evolvement and development of this colonial system, which is still there. And a great role is played here by our cooperation with the African countries, our participation in the Islamic Cooperation Organization. And I'd like to stress one more time, it's very important to develop the educational programs and technical programs, but Russia can bring and can offer something bigger, because Russia is a global power that can show the world and should show the world new model of the development in the 21st century. And then, after that, we'll be able to tell and share that knowledge with our African counterparts and to give them a chance to follow us. And I would like to extend my thanks to the leadership of Tatarstan, leadership of the Russian Federation that created the brilliant conditions for educational, technological, business development. In Kazan and Tatarstan are major proponents and major contributors to cooperation with the OIC and OIC countries. In the late November, we are looking forward to host, together with the Kingdom of the Saudi Arabia, the president of Tatarstan, Mr. Rustam Minikhanov, and the whole team of the Strategic Vision Group. So we're looking forward to having you in Saudi Arabia. All the best to all of you. Thank you very much, Ramazan Gadjimuratovich. And I would like to say that find the time to speak about neocolonialism in the 16th at 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. During the discussion, we'll have this seminar and we'll be happy to discuss it with you. It will be not boring. It will be very captivating, informative, and interesting, because Mr. Abdulatifov always raises very important, relevant issues and offering different options for addressing these problems, as well as in its due time. I was very much surprised when I heard the first interview, one of the ambassador of one of the African countries that I associate only with the football, because we see a lot of football players who play in all countries of the world, including the Russian Federation. And specifically, that ambassador actually turned upside down my imagination and my idea about Cameroon. You probably might guess what I'm speaking about, what I'm driving at. And specifically, Mr. Mohammad Pabzaleh, he was the first to outline those strengths and these tendencies and trends that are relevant to Cameroon nowadays. And frankly speaking, after having a discussion with him, I came to know that Zarubezh Podstroy is represented in Africa, what activities are organized there, what is going on in the nuclear sphere together with the Russian companies, and how much interest there is in terms of the joint works and cooperation with the Russian defense industry. And it's my great privilege and honor to give the floor to Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Cameroon, the Russian Federation, Mr. Mohammad Pabzaleh. Please, the floor is yours. I think that while we are getting back on track, I would like to give the floor to a big friend of our conference from the very first edition of the conference. He's been the great supporter. He wanted to come and participate offline. He has some other events, some prior commitments, but I would like to give the floor for this video address to the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Tunisian Republic, the Russian Federation, Mr. Ben Salim Tarek. For the International Conference of Russia Africa that is organized by the Kazan Federal University. Gives an opportunity to strengthen the partnership relations. We would like to participate in the work of the scientific conference, taking into account the relevance and high-profile character of this forum. But due to the pandemic and some other circumstances that we cannot influence, we failed to come. But of course, we will not miss this opportunity to participate in the forum and to renew this collaboration and to network with the experts in Kazan University in Kazan. This conference is a great opportunity for us to further develop the cooperation with the African countries in many areas. And for Tunisia, it gives the historical, cultural, and political opportunities. Tunisia is the connecting link between Africa and the Arab world, and also the European countries. It gives Tunisia gives a lot of attention to strengthening relations with Russia at the bilateral level. And as part of the Russian-African Summit, that Tunisia was represented by the head of state in Sochi in October 2019. The upcoming Russian-African Summit will give us opportunities to wrap up and to discuss the obligations taken at the summit in Sochi and to outline new areas of cooperation between Russia and African countries. And today, we suggest to develop the strategy for the development of Tunisia-Russian cooperation, specifically or customized for the African continent, based on the historical representation of Tunisia in Africa and the perfect relations that we enjoyed so far, as well as the it has established with African countries, as well experience that we gained in many spheres. And we'd like to discuss this bilateral agenda and include it in our program. And last but not least, I would like to extend my deep gratitude to the organizers, Institute of International Relations, the Kazan Federal University and Center for the Arab Culture Al-Hadara in Kazan. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to make a presentation. I would like to wish all the success to this conference. So unfortunately, there was some technical hiccups, but those who have the chance to get the interpretation, but shortly, those who know the ambassador, they expected him to say, but of course he thanked Kazan and Kazan Federal University for this unprecedented organization of the event, and he gave a very warm description of the prospects of the cooperation between Tunisia and
российско-тунисского сотрудничества в целом. И действительно, в прошлый раз он был непосредственно на мероприятии, и для него именно перспектива
prospect of the development of the regional cooperation, and specifically with Tatarstan, turned out to be very interesting, and they were commented on him by him, and he specifically highlighted the cooperation and prospects of his relations in the Mediterranean region. Without any further ado and my retelling his presentation, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Mohamed Babasali, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Cameroon to the Russian Federation. And we do hope that there will be everything okay. There will be no technical hiccups when we speak out, not only about the football, because there is some stereotype and there are certain brands, they got stuck in our mind so solidly that the country might be associated with only one specific thing. And of course, Cameroon will be associated in the future, not only with the football, but with many powerful economy and very dynamic development of the bilateral relations with the Russian Federation.
Seems like we have certain problems with Cameroon, and we'll try to connect another country. Let me introduce a person who is actively supporting our conference, and he's online right now. I'm talking about the ambassador of Zambia to the Russian Federation. And our bilateral relations are really special, and especially at this certain moment. And I guess Mr. Ambassador will probably correct my words, but I guess that just a couple of years ago, when the embassy of Zambia appeared in the Russian Federation, and the embassy of the Russian Federation appeared in Zambia. And I hope that Mr. Ambassador is with us now. And next year, we hope to see all our distinguished guests, all ambassadors of friendly countries here in Kazan. Maybe Kazan is not, the weather here is not as warm as in African countries, but it's a very hospitable city and a hospital land. So that's why it will be very warm in this meeting. So unfortunately, seems like we're not able to connect with the ambassador. The next speaker will be online as well, but before I will give him a floor, I would like to give a floor to one of the guests who is here in offline format with us. I have already mentioned that Oman is a very special country, a special country for the African continent because of its history. And very often you can see people in the streets of Amman who will definitely agree with you and remind you about the heritage of the African countries. And I always remember how sincere people of Oman treat their past that is connected with the African continent. And that's why I would like to give a floor to Mr. Jamil Ahmed Fadel, the Cultural and Educational Counselor of the Embassy of the Sultanate of Oman in the Russian Federation. Thank you so much for the invitation to take part in this conference organized by Kazan Federal University. I would like to greet you all here today and send my warm greetings on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Ali Savnas Ali, and his sincere congratulations. This conference is extremely important and significant for development of friendly relations and close ties between different countries. Oman is focused on strengthening friendly relationships with the Russian Federation in many fields, especially in cultural and educational spheres. And for us, Kazan University is one of the most important partners. I would like to thank the organizing committee of this conference the Institute of International Relations of Kazan Federal University that provided us with the opportunity to come here today and to be able to communicate and interact with all of you. Kazan has a great history and it's open for development of ties with all countries. And I would like to thank all of you. I would like to thank all the participants, and I would like to wish you fruitful cooperation, and I hope to see you annually at this conference. Thank you so much. Thank you, dear Jamil. Thank you so much. And I'm absolutely sure that together with Sultanate of Oman, we'll be able to find new formats of cooperation in general and specifically on the African continent, namely with Zanzibar and other African regions. Thank you so much, and thank you for your kind words. Now let me give a floor to a person who is for sure absolutely associated with the Republic of Benin, but at the same time, he's related to the contemporary history and the Russian Federation. So I would like to call him the honorable Russian citizen. When he became the representative of the Organization of Economic Cooperation, and I was absolutely impressed that this is a person who, on the one hand, has an African heritage, but on the other hand, is an absolutely Eurasian patriot, the person of the world. So let me give a floor to Mr. Kachofa Gabriel Anese, the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Benin to the Russian Federation and the CIS countries in 2012-2016. Are you here with us? Thank you so much, dear Anna. Dear participants of the second forum, Russia Africa, first of all, I would like to thank Kazan Federal University and personally Master Rector Ilshat Gafurov. I'm absolutely sure that he is listening to us at the moment. The Institute of African Studies and its director, Mrs. Irina Abramova, the Secretariat of the Russia Africa Secretariat and the head of the Secretariat, Mr. Oleg Ozerov. And I would also like to greet Mr. Yevgeny Primakov and Mr. Abdulatifov as well, who is a big friend of mine, and all the experts of our distinguished forum. On behalf of the Council of the Graduates of Russian University, and I'm the head of this council, and as well on behalf of the Eurasian Organization of Cooperation, and I'm the Deputy General Secretary of that organization, and on behalf of the Organization of Friends of Russia, and I'm the head of this committee, I would like to greet you all, dear participants and guests. I know that we are closely observed at the moment. We're listened by school kids and the students and the graduates of Russian universities in many African countries. Dear friends, unfortunately, I really wanted to come, but unfortunately I wasn't able to join you today. But believe me, emotionally, and my heart and my soul are with you now in Kazan. Kazan and Tatarstan are the second home for me. I visited Kazan University for many times since the times when I was the head of the Union of African Students in the Russian Federation. And I was always supported by Tatarstan, by Kazan University, and all universities of the city of Kazan. Kazan was always able to gather, to collect all the best people, the outstanding professors, scientists, and scholars, and the students are those people who seek ways to make world a better place. And for me, Tatarstan is a homeland. That's the land of harmony and prosperity, the land of history and diverse cultures, and the land of the future. Dear friends, it's a very symbolic thing that in Kazan, namely, we're about to discuss the key issues related to the friendship of the nations. Russia and Africa are completely different, but we have a lot in common at the same time. Yes, we are separated by thousands and thousands of kilometers, but at the same time, we equally love freedom. We believe in love and friendship, and we are very optimistic about the future. The Soviet Union has contributed a lot to development of African countries, helped us to overcome the colonial past, provided educational, cultural opportunities, and gave us a number of engineering achievements. And believe me, Africa never forgets about friends. And now, when Africa again needs a hand of a friend, a helping hand, Russia feel that it can give this hand to African countries. When we met in Sochi in 2019, and that was a huge event, and now we are preparing for the second summit that will take place in 2022. And that's partially a reason why 30 years after Russia is coming back to the African continent, we're not talking about the potential of the African continent, but we're talking about what exactly Russia can give to the African continent. And it's very important to develop those mechanisms that will help to strengthen, develop relations between Africa and Russia. Anna, unfortunately, I don't have that much time. So let me just be focused on the number of steps that we have to make in order to strengthen the relations of the African continent with the Russian Federation. First of all, we have to talk about the African continent as the continent of the youth. Out of 1,400,000,000 people, the majority of African residents are younger, under 25, and the percentage of young Africans is still growing. And it means that our future depends on our young people. The second step, we have to implement a number of educational programs for the African youth because they want to study and they want to learn Russian language, the language of Pushkin, Dostoevsky. And today, only 17 African students study in Russian universities, and annually, Russia provides just 1.5 seats for African students. Is it a lot or is it not enough? But let me give you some other data to compare. France, for example, allocates 2.5 seats, which is like 25% of the overall number. And China provides 15,000 places for African students. And they also bear all the expenses, starting from the air tickets to medical insurance and accommodation expenses. And the third thing is that the real friends of Russia are the graduates of Russian universities. And there are like 1.5, over 1.5 million of them in the world. These are the people who really love their second homeland. Many of them occupies like high positions in different organizations, and they are those who can support Russia in their initiatives. So I'm concentrating my attention only on the so-called political elite, but it's the right time to pay attention to the economic and research potential. Because among the graduates of Russian universities, there are many outstanding economists, researchers, scholars. I know that more than 10 rectors of African universities speak Russian, which means that among the elite of research community are graduates from African countries. They are independent and they are influential and they can help people in many organizations join their efforts. And the last thing that I would like to be focused on, the fifth step, which is important to take in order to strengthen the relations between our countries, and that's just my suggestion. It's important to create the unified digital platform in the field of economic, political, and educational cooperation. The platform that can be used by people from African countries, from Russia, they can find any information there, because now we observe the lack of information, and it's very important to organize an investment fund in order to support the projects initiated by Africans and Russians as well. I have already rapidly mentioned that, and I'm glad to mention that again. And also, it's important to strengthen relations between our countries without developing cooperation in mass media. We don't have any radio or TV in Russian language. All that we have are Western media. So how would you like us to know more about Russia? It's impossible. Also, the direct flights are extremely important to develop relations between our countries, because now our students, in order to get to Russia, they have to fly via other countries like Paris or even New York. So difference, I would like to conclude my speech with the words of outstanding Nelson Mandela, who was a fighter for the independence of African countries, who once told, the most important thing in life is the way we influence the lives of other people. And that's the only principle, the only criterion which is important to understand what is we worth of. So I love Kazan. I love this certain conference, and I'm absolutely sure that Russia and Africa, they will be always together. Thank you so much for such an opportunity to share my suggestions today. Thank you, Anna.
Alex, you have only 5 minutes, and you probably understand. But you know, I simply cannot stop this charming, this brilliant young gentleman. Well, frankly speaking, I learned there are 54 languages in Benin, and I think this charming person speaks at least 5 of them. Hula, Europhone, and you know, I would learn them just to speak Kachova, but he learned Russian to speak with us, to share one and the same language. And here I'd like to make a proposal.
Ассоциации, допустим, Россия Африка, почему бы не подумать?
As for the association of the Russia and Africa, something that could be head of 10 rectors is not a small number. I think that if you can consider this option, that's my proposal, actually. As for the interaction with the mass media, so I'm as a teacher and as a participant of the as a member of the associations and media organizations, I would be happy to consider this option and to think in this area, because we have such proactive people. We don't need anybody else. We don't need anybody else, because we have Kachova with us, because we can do it on our own. We can initiate it and implement. So colleagues, you understand that His Excellency the Ambassador, I cannot say no or interfere, but I would kindly request our next speakers to stick to the time limits. I'm very grateful to Your Excellency for mentioning the need for intensifying our cooperation and establishment of a new fields of cooperation, for example, in the educational sphere. But I should say that the country, because you are Russian, and that's your second homeland, actually, and we can see it and hear from what you say and how you say it. But for me, the second homeland is an African country, and it's a very specific country. It's my first country. I'm the specialist in Arabic languages, and it's Egypt. And you probably understand that I cannot but give the floor to the representative of the country that is very active in these African associations, in the educational sphere, in the sphere of youth cooperation, in the Russian-Egypt Youth Forum that has just finished. And I think bringing our efforts together with Egypt counterparts, we can further achieve unprecedented success and accomplishments.
Okay, thank you.
In terms as part of the Russian-African cooperation. And I would like to give the floor to the deputy of the Egyptian parliament, the head of the chairman of the Committee on Work with African Countries, Russia side, Sabhi Mohammed.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. خالص تحياتي للمنصة الكريمة والزملاء الباحثين والأكاديميين والمفكرين وأيضا الحضور.
It gives me great pleasure that my first visit to the Russian Federation is connected with this important conference. It's a great honor to be present among the leading scholars and experts. And all the organizers of the conference for the fact this conference is held in such a wonderful way.
لجامعة كازان العريقة وكل السادة المنظمين والقائمين على المؤتمر.
I would like to thank the colleagues who organized this conference. That is organized in such a perfect way. Interest in Egypt indicates the depth of Egyptian and Russian relations rather than its history. We would like to thank you for being interested in organizing and staging this conference.
بدأت عام 1943 كما يعتقد البعض
And we established these relationships and we have been actively evolving them since 1943. And it is ingrained bond that Russian writing historian Vladimir Belikov talks about in his book about Egyptian-Russian relations. And the title of this book is Russian Egypt, where the author starts with several interesting questions that he addressed to the readers. He says, did you know that Russian pilgrims traveled for many years to the monastery of Saint Catherine and Mount El Tur on the Sinai? And after the collapse of the Byzantine Empire, for many years, Russian Tsars took care of Christian monasteries, including the monastery of Saint Catherine. They took responsibility for this monastery in 1968, and due to the fact that for Russians, this place was sacred, and the image of Saint Catherine was made one of the highest awards given to Russian women back in 1917. And in 1900, in the beginning of the 20th century, the newspaper Iskra, a Marxist political newspaper, was secretly distributed in Russia, and it entered Russia through the port of Alexandria with the help of revolutionaries who lived in Egypt, as a result of which Egyptian public opinion was well aware of the events. And the whole community knew about the events taking place as a result of the Russian Revolution, and they watched at her with admiration. The Suez Canal was the main crossing for Russian soldiers in the first half of 1906, and after their deportation from the Far East. A monument was also erected to Russian sailors who died in a naval battle aboard a ship, Peresviet, back in 1917. This monument was built by the Ministry of Defense of the Soviet Union in 1954. Has anybody known that there is a relationship between the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the Egyptian revolutions of 1919? It was the time when the newspapers reported with admiration to the Egyptian audience the news about the revolution. And the revolutionary centers were formed in many Egyptian cities as well as in Russia. They were called a council, so, such as the city of Zifta, which was later named Republic of Zifti. It is also worth mentioning that the art of ballet in Egypt is associated with the famous ballerina Anna Pavlova. And also I would like to say that there was erected a monument in honor back in 2003 in the hall of the Library of Alexandria. And in 2020, the largest monument was erected at the entrance of the Egyptian Ballet Academy in Cairo. For centuries, Egypt has been a shrine to hundreds, if not thousands, of Russian diplomats, artists, scientists, businessmen, journalists, experts, military and intellectuals. These visits have played an important role in strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries, especially the team of experts and engineers who participated in the construction of the High Dam, which the Russians called Pyramid of the 20th century. In addition, military cooperation, Moscow's historical stance in support of Egypt, including the threat of Soviet leader Khrushchev to bomb London and Paris with the nuclear weapons if they do not end their aggression against Egypt. Cooperation continues in all areas, especially after the June 30th revolution, in the direction of a deeper partnership, which is always emphasized by the political leadership. A guide that put a lot of emphasis on the Egyptian youth that I represent today. There are young people among you who have burst into all areas of leadership, executive and legislative spheres, and reached high levels of promotion and high level of this political weight. And I'm the best example of that's standing in front of you as a member of the Egyptian parliament. Ideologists from the extreme right to the extreme left with a different party affiliation, as well as young people who do not belong to any party. From that perspective, we were able to vigorously compete and secure seats in the Egyptian Parliament and Senate. We are proud to represent the younger generation in the Egyptian Parliament, as that is a unique experience for Egypt. And thanks to all what has already happened, we might have a chance to look forward to the opportunity to unite the joint efforts of Egyptian and Russian youth, exchange experiences, best practices, and visits, as well as form joint working groups that will support the efforts of the two countries in the direction of construction, development, and exchange of national interests. We still have a lot to do together. Together, we can build a better future for the benefit of our countries. And I would like to sincerely wish all the best to the youth of Egypt. Thank you very much for your attention. Very much. It's very gratifying to see that in Egypt, they remember not only about these historical episodes or periods when Egypt was the place that accommodated Russian immigrants and many cultural names, these icons of our history and culture. They found that place they could safely stay in Alexandria, and there was the council together with the Russian consulate that were there together of the Russian Empire. It's part of our shared history. It's our legacy. And being there, staying in Egypt, you can feel the ambience and the warm attitude and that special attention to this aggression, and Khrushchev was disapproving that. And Her Excellency mentioned that in her speech. And it's very important for me personally and for the person as an Arab studies expert to come to Aswan and to come to the place which is sacred. And so it's very memorable for both states, as Aswan Dam that was built thanks to joint efforts of the Russian and Egypt specialists. And thank you for mentioning that. And all these initiatives that are supported by the parliament at a new level. I mean, the Russian and Egypt efforts and initiatives. And Egypt is becoming a capital of the youth cooperation of the all African level. And we also have to enhance and facilitate and actually increase our efforts in this area. And I would like to give the floor, who's a great helper and great assistant in this work. And I would like to give the floor for the welcoming address, the representative of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, as the office in the Kazakhstan Republic. I'd like to give the floor to Radik Wahitov, who is in Kazakhstan as of the moment. Dear participants and organizers of the scientific conference, today the African states are very important partners for us. Together, in the international arena, we stand for the liberties and rights of the international law and mutual respect, respecting the path of the development that they chose. We are against this one-off actions and the trade wars. Just like Russia, the African countries gradually fighting for the system of the global trade be of a fair character, and so that everybody could enjoy the benefits of globalization without any limitations. We established the cooperation aimed at overcoming the consequences of these colonial past. We are registering the Russian vaccine Sputnik V in the African countries and further deliver it to the African countries. Based on our many years of cooperation, we take the path of the comprehensive, full-fledged development of cooperation with African states. Over the last years, we intensified the political dialogue, including the dialogue at the highest level. I would like to mention the summit that we had in September 2019 in Sochi, the first summit of Russia Africa that gave impetus to the cooperation with many countries of the African continent. And currently we are preparing in organizing the next year, the second summit that will feature the head of states meetings. We will enhance the further cooperation in other projects. And as you probably know, the Secretariat of this Partnership Forum organized a lot of events. The solid foundation for the cooperation between African states and Russia, it gives good opportunities for intensifying the trade, economic, cultural, and other exchanges at the different levels. One of the flagships of the cooperation between our countries, making a great contribution to our relations, is made by the Republic of Tatarstan. Back in 2018, the president of Republic of Tatarstan, Mr. Minikanov, as part of the tour to the African states, visited Egypt and Tunisia. And currently, we're working the issues of visiting a number of African states. And I do hope these plans will be implemented, if not this year, then the next for sure. In this April, Tatarstan was visited by the ambassadors of Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Uganda, and we work actively in developing cooperation of the Republic with such countries as Ghana, Mozambique, Senegal, and Eritrea. As for the latest success and achievements, it's the renewal of the operations of Tatnef's company in Libya, since this situation is getting back on track in this region. One of the center for attraction for our African friends is the organized in Tatarstan, the Kazan Summit, International Economic Summit. And this event last time was attended by the representatives of 13 countries of African continent. And since this conference is organized on the premises of our alma mater, Kazan Federal Universities, that witnessed studying 500 students representing Africa, and this conference is becoming a good tradition. Undoubtedly, this high-profile forum will address a number of relevant issues as part of the African-Russian cooperation, and I'm sure that it will be held in a very productive and successful way. It will further facilitate fostering mutual cooperation and understanding. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Razik Rafikovich, and they ask us to put on the masks as part of our anti-COVID requirements. I have to remind you about the masks. And I will give the floor to the Counselor of the Embassy of the Kingdom of Bahrain in the Russian Federation on political issues and interaction with Arab, Western, and Russian media, Mr. Salom Hassam Eddin, who is, in my opinion, the person who always supports all the initiatives on cooperation between the Russian Federation and its foreign partners. And I would like to thank him for responding positively to our invitation to participate in the event. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, participants of the international conference, it's my great pleasure and I'm proud to be present in this event today, the forum that hosts many Arab and African and Russian scholars. I'm honored to deliver greetings from His Excellency, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Bahrain, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the Russian Federation, Dr. Ahmed Abdulrahman Al-Saati. Thanks for the successful holding of the Scientific Forum Islam in a Multicultural World, which was held on October 14-15. His Excellency, the Ambassador, wanted to join us, but he had to go back to the Kingdom of Bahrain and asked me to remember him to all the participants and send his best wishes and his hopes for success, progress, and prosperity to achieve the goal for which this conference is being organized and held. And recently we see the development in many areas, including the scientific and educational, and the relations in developing in all the aspects. At the Embassy of the Kingdom of Bahrain, under the leadership of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, we're working in cooperation with the Russian friends and our friends in the Republic of Tatarstan to develop Russian-Bahraini relations in general and Tata-Bahrain relations in particular, in such fields as the culture, research, academic cooperation, because we believe the culture and science are the bridges between the countries of the world. So, we believe that these fields and this area of activity allow us to bridge the gaps and establish very trustworthy relations between our countries. Dear participants, the epidemic situation that the world is witnessing nowadays and that we saw back in 2020 as a spread of the coronavirus pandemic has forced all countries to cooperate with each other in finding new formats of this new work. Because we believe that in Kingdom of Bahrain, as it was stood by His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, humanity is a community that shares interests and is bound by values and civilization. So therefore, scientific and cultural cooperation has become more important than political and economic collaboration because science and culture open the way for interaction in other fields, not only in diplomatic ones. His Majesty King Hamad highlighted this trend during his 4 visits to the Russian Federation when he met with the Russian President Vladimir Putin and discussed opportunities for cooperation between the Kingdom of Bahrain and the Russian Federation. We see the growing number of the students coming from the Kingdom of Bahrain studying in the Russian Federation in the Kazan Federal University. And we also consider and tap the opportunities of studying the Russian students in the Bahrain University, specifically in the sphere of Kazan banking and Islamic banking. You know that Bahrain has gained a lot of experience and a lot of expertise in this area. The Kingdom of Bahrain is well known for the extensive experience in teaching Islamic banking and Islamic finance. That's exactly what Russian and Western partners need. Dear participants, a lot of geopolitical changes are taking place in the modern world. And we notice that in the Kingdom of Bahrain, the position of the Russian Federation has become stronger and more oriented towards the Arab countries, both the Gulf countries and Africa, which since the beginning of the 3rd millennium began developing their political and economic relations with the Russian Federation and showing commitment to bring it to a new level. And we should use this opportunity of establishing relations between Russian and European universities, as well as friendly Republic of Tatarstan in all its cities and regions. Will remain friends. I mean, the cities and the regions of Russia, as well as specifically Republic of Tatarstan, will be and they still are friends of the Arab world because of our common shared history, both ancient and modern. That has not witnessed any conflicts or wars between the Russian Federation and other countries. We hope that these friendly relations with the Third Republic will remain, and we hope that they will be developing in order to serve science and education, as well as Arab students who will become ambassadors of Arab countries in Russian universities in the Republic of Tatarstan. We do hope that these mutually beneficial relations, these projects that were initiated and might be launched in the future, will further contribute to the sustainable development of our countries, taking all the opportunities of developing cooperation at all levels in all spheres. I would like to thank you all again and wish you continued success and prosperity. Extending you gratitude. I would also like to thank Professor Muhammad Al-Amari. I would also like to thank Professor Naila Mingazova for her contribution to development of relations between the Russian universities, Russian academic community, and Arab colleagues and counterparts.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your efforts aimed at strengthening relations with the Republic of Tatarstan and the Kazan University. And I was glad to hear about cooperation in a cultural field, which is extremely important because Bahrain offered to organize the Day of Islamic Art, and it was supported by UNESCO, and the regional office of UNESCO supported the initiative to make the ancient capital of Bahrain, Muharrat, the capital of Islamic art. And I think this is extremely important to develop our relations in this cultural field. And that's why I would like to give a floor to the head of Россотрудничество office, which is the Russian house in the Republic of Egypt. And it's a great pleasure to give a floor to Mr. Marat Gatin, who is originally from Tatarstan. I would like to congratulate him with his career achievements. And Marat, I'm so glad to see you. So the floor is yours. Dear participants, dear guests, and organizers of the forum, it's a great pleasure that this conference takes place for the second time already, and it's becoming the real platform where experts and specialists have received an opportunity to discuss important issues mentioned by a number of speakers today. Russia has always been developing relations with the African continent, and in recent years, these relations are becoming even more important, and Russia Africa Summit will take place next year, and now there are a number of events taking place before the summit, and nowadays in Moscow, an international forum, youth forum, Russia Africa, is taking place in Moscow, and African students who are in Moscow at the moment, they have an opportunity to communicate and interact with their peers from Moscow, who will help them to build up cultural ties with between our countries. As for the Republic of Egypt, we observe that in Cairo, here in Cairo, there are a number of interesting events. I'm not going to tell about them in details, but I would like to tell you just about the key ones, and Anna has already mentioned one of them, because in the beginning of October, we hosted the Egyptian Youth Forum and had a chance to welcome about 30 participants from Russia. And we had a chance to discuss the issues related to artificial intelligence. Egyptian students, in their turn, had the chance to visit Moscow and Kazan, and they were really pleased with such an opportunity. Relations in this sphere are gaining more and more importance, and it's going to be an example of fruitful cooperation in the next couple of years. I would like to also mention that Россотрудничество is always ready to support the forum to develop joint projects on the platform of our forum and to work together closely with the organizing committee. And in the end of my speech, I would like to say also that I'm so happy to see the representatives of the Republic of Egypt in offline forum. They came to Kazan to take part in that forum, and I really hope to work closely with them as well to develop a certain roadmap and develop relations between our youth. And let me add that, and Anna has mentioned that already too, that I'm originally from Tatarstan and from Kazan, and I'm so happy to see Kazan University and the city of Kazan becoming a spot for cultural interaction, the place where many people from other countries are coming to know more about Tatarstan and Russia. Thank you so much for your attention. Marat, thank you. I'm so happy to see you, and it's such a great thing that you had a chance to join our session today, and that thank you so much that you mentioned the representatives of the Republic of Egypt. I know that your institution supported these representatives, so Россотрудничество office has already done a lot for strengthening our cooperation, and they are still working in this field, and many cultural, educational, political projects are implemented with the help of the Office of Россотрудничества. So please, let's support Marat because he is from Kazan, as I already said. So let me give a floor to our online speaker, a person who works a lot in order to strengthen relations between the African continent and Russia. And this person is a new generation representative who helps to develop a new format of our relations. And I'm talking about Nigeria. Nigeria sent a number of representatives to a previous forum, and the president of Nigeria, namely, joined the work of the forum, and it means a lot to us because obviously it's a sign that Nigeria is aimed at cooperation with Russia, bilateral cooperation with Russian regions as well. So with a great pleasure, I would like to give a floor to Mr. Sheikh Abdullahi, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Federal Republic of Nigeria to the Russian Federation. He was online actually, but at the moment when they had to present their speech, we faced certain technical problems. So let me give a floor to our next speaker then, who is associated with the African studies, and as an expert in this field, I would like to say that I appreciate the contribution of the expert and the scholars in this field for all the heritage that we have now. And it's obviously really hard to develop, namely African studies, and let me give a floor to the head of the Department of African Studies from the Faculty of Oriental Studies of the St. Petersburg State University, Alexander Zheltov. So, Alexander, I would like to invite you to join me here. Thank you very much. Anna. Thank you for your kind words. And dear colleagues, in the same beginning, I would like to thank on behalf of the Department of African Studies, and I represent the department itself and the Union of the Expert of African Studies. I would like to thank the organizing committee and the administration of Kazan University for an opportunity to take part in this forum. And obviously, Kazan is gaining its importance on the map of the research centers in the field of African studies. It's extremely important to discuss issues face to face, not only via the online format. One of the anthropologists back in the days once wrote that the 21st century is the era of humanitarian knowledge, and we are observing it at the moment. We are developing a number of vaccines, but in some of the regions of the world, there is no access to the vaccines, and I guess this is a key example of so-called humanitarian problems. And that's why it's very important to observe what certain fields and research spheres can offer, what solutions they can offer to us. And of course, all those solutions obviously has a relation with the African continent. And Africa, with the growing population, is one of the most important regions of our world. Africa is not a far continent to us. Sometimes the news from the African continent, we got them faster than the changes to the timetable of lessons and courses at the universities. So that's what we are observing at the moment, how we are developing relations with countries, the international cooperation, and it's very important to be able to adapt to differences, cultural differences that exist in other countries. And one of the aims for us, as for the experts in African studies field, we have to create this community of specialists in the field of African studies in order to study the social and cultural aspects of the countries. We also have to remember that Africa is not only the continent rich in natural sources, but the land with its own problems. We cannot use Africa for some geopolitical objectives and aims, but it's an independent land with its own suggestions and ideas, and that's how I see the aim of our department, the Department of African Studies. Russia, for example, as we all know, didn't have any colonies on the territory of African states, but we had a long history in African studies, which is a very important thing. Konstantin Lishin, who is a well-known diplomat, has once said that Lishin said that we probably could gain certain profits from using the potential of African countries, but it certainly had a negative impact on the principles of support that we have to provide our African friends with. And this is a great idea for the participants of events in the field of African studies like this forum, for example. And as a sign of appreciation and the way to say thank you to the experts in the field of African studies from Kazan, I would like to present as a gift this book. So I hope that later we'll be able to discuss a number of important and significant issues with the experts from Kazan University. Thank you so much for this gift. We do appreciate that a lot. Unexpectedly, but that's such a kind gift, because that's probably the best gift. The best gift is a book. And I also remembered the phrase once said by one of the colleagues that it's very important to develop a new format to study other peoples and nations, and I'm absolutely sure that the different attitude of Russia towards the African continent and I guess that's the evidence that we have a very special ties and special connection and relations with the African continent. So now let me give a floor to another speaker who is not only a representative of his own country, but who is spiritually, emotionally a real Russian citizen who takes a lot of efforts aimed at developing the work of the House of Friendship and Cooperation in Algeria. So let me give a floor to Belhamiti Mohammed El Miloud. Dr. Mohammed, are you here with us? He was actually with us. So are you here? Yeah, sure, I'm always with you, Anna. Dear participants and the organizing committee of the second forum, Russia, Africa, politics, economy, culture, and history, I would like to greet all of you, and I would like to thank Kazan Federal University for the invitation and the opportunity to take part in this conference. I will try to read in order to be really brief. So the president of the Algeria in February 2021 mentioned that the relations between Russia and Algeria are exceptional. They are about to turn into the real brotherhood. This is not just the friendship, but also because of common political views and a common attitude towards the idea of freedom, democracy. And the president of the Russian Federation, Mr. Putin, has highlighted that Russia and Algeria have close ties, long-term ties, and stable ones. The relations between Algeria and Russia were developing because Russia was supporting Algeria in the war for its independence in 1984 against France, and due to the support and the developing construction projects on the territory of Algeria after it got its independence. So Algeria is a geostrategic partner who can help Russia to develop its presence on the African continent and become a helping hand for Russia in strengthening ties with African states. Russia hopes that Algeria will be its stable political ally and will be able to support the exchange and the developing of mutual interests. Therefore, any threat in the region could be the risk for further partnership and cooperation with Algeria, namely with Algeria and in general with the African continent. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lavrov, at the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Al-Madra, noted that Moscow would support the efforts taken by Algeria aimed at strengthening cooperation and ties between our countries. That's the official position of Moscow that demonstrates the importance of our relations and cooperation, especially in the field of military cooperation. Not so long time ago, we met again to discuss the military cooperation for the support of the national army. The representatives of the Ministry of Defense, when they met with Mr. Sergei Shoigu, mentioned and highlighted that the people of Algeria remember the efforts of the Soviet Union and the contribution of the Soviet Union back in the days, and for all the efforts taken to defend the interests of our country and the ability to meet the challenges and threats that exist nowadays for Algeria. This year, Russia, for the first time in history, organized a number of military like drills, war games to the territory of Algeria, which is for sure the sign of trust and a special attitude, special relations between Russia and Algeria. representatives of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation also mentioned the special relations of Algeria and Russia in the military sector. Another important field is the common efforts aimed at fighting the consequences of the pandemic and the delivery of Sputnik V vaccine to Algeria. This demonstrates the exceptional character of our relations in strategic sectors, and that will have an impact on developing relations and finding solutions and for the number of important issues, and will be able to open the access of Russia to the African continent. It's extremely important to promote all possible channels that can help to strengthen relations between Russia and Algeria, build up cooperation, efficient cooperation in different fields, promote initiatives and that's why I would like to offer the project of the House of Friendship and Cooperation between Algeria and Russia, and obviously this project can serve the interests of both countries. The aims and objectives of this project have been already published in the journal Arab and African Studies. Both countries have been working closely over this project, but we still need the support in order to implement this project and get it to the reality. So I would like to ask all of you to support this project, and I would like to say thank you to the administration of the Russian Federal University, Kazan Federal University, who obviously understand the importance of this project, the importance of the houses of friendship and cooperation, because Algeria is a strategic partner for Russia. Thank you so much for your attention and for your support.
Thank you very much for your contribution and for your insistent commitment to Russia-Algeria friendship. We have our flags here, as you can see. That's what I wanted to say. You always ready, even in symbols and surrounding environment, you always stick to these ideas and this philosophy. Thank you very much, Dr. Belhamad. I still would like to give the floor to our representatives of Cameroon, because technical issues and hiccups is not an impediment for our friendship and for our cooperation. I would like to give floor to Jean Koma, the attaché for the culture of the Russian cultural educational and diplomat of the embassy. I hope that this time we'll have the chance to listen to the welcoming address from our Cameroon colleague.
To give me the floor.
Thank you.
I would like first to express you my gratitude for this international scientific conference, which is holding on the sidelines of the 11th International Forum on Islam in Multicultural World. This conference is helping to chart bright paths for the development of Russian African relations. Certainly, it will produce a particular orientation of their cooperation focused on the emergence and consolidation of common ideological, political, and ethico-axiological heritage. Russia just offers African countries new benchmarks of success for their development in a particularity of political, cultural, economic, and strategic registers. Instead of African countries continuing to indulge in the narrative of neocolonialist fellows imbued with fatalism, despite its indisputable potential, they must now switch to multipolarity rather than remain in the shackles of the vast geopolitical strategies of traditional state powers. This is the meaning of the Russia-Africa Summit in October 2019 in Sochi. This summit, the first of its kind, will have contributed to the creation of conditions conducive to the development of economic cooperation between Russia and Africa, to the identification of new partnerships, possibilities, and the study of means of intensifying their trends. And this is the great merit of not losing sight of the fact that the improvement of their current dynamic is also nourished by an absence of historical misunderstandings and is part of a secular tradition scientifically proven in the African descent of the famous poet and founder of Russian literature, I name Alexander Sergeyevich Pushkin, whose grandfather Abraham Petrovich Hannibal was born in Africa. Finally, I can say that Russia and Africa firmly believe in finding answers to shared problems such as economic development and tackling new threats. So I would like to thank you for your kindly attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very interesting topic that you raised, and specifically the topic of using the neo-colonial narrative as the opposite to the multipolar world. Should we put them in kind of contradiction or consider it in certain continuum? I'd like to say that it's very specific topic for additional discussion. Thank you very much for touching on that topic. And I'm so happy to have you here, that you finally managed to join. And as far as I know, the ambassador, extraordinary plenipotentiary of Nigeria, has to leave this, and of course, we feel his energy, his commitment. And as far as you know, today we have the Friday prayers. It's of course very important. Nowadays, a lot of people understand the importance of cooperation with Africa in all kinds of areas and fields, and they understand that the cultural sphere, the sphere of our relations, the fundamental ones, it is something that is setting the pace and define their directions. And I would like to give the floor to everyone who is supporting the Russian-African cooperation in any that thanks to his budget and thanks to his commitment to organize events that are strategically important for the Russian-African cultural cooperation. And he has the team who is actively involved in this process. And I would like to present it not just the head of the Cultural Center of Frankoteka, named after Rudomino, but also as the head of a unique group or unique team that is actually fully focused on this cooperation, which is a part of their DNA. I'd like to give the floor to Tatiana Semenenko. Please, the floor is yours.
Добрый день, Анна Алексеевна, спасибо большое за такое представление, потому что действительно...
Thank you very much for such a presentation. I'm representing the cultural sphere, and usually it is given in the end of the list, taking into account that we experiencing certain lack or shortage in different spheres like political and economical one. And the culture is actually this connecting link. It's actually the glue that connects all these elements, these building bricks together, and we cannot do without it. And probably based on that, I would like to provide some recommendations and give some tips that we can add to this cultural glue that connects us all together. I would like to welcome the Anna Alexandra, our esteemed moderator, and heads of the diplomatic missions and participants and guests of the second Scientific International Conference, Russia Africa, that is organized here in the premises of Kazan Federal University. I'd like to thank the team of the university for your efforts, for your contribution that are organized in this continuous format. And there are a lot of events. And I'd like to be brief, of course. As the head of the center of the library, we organized bilateral cooperation projects since 2017 as part of the African festival that brought together more than 12 countries and represented in the comprehensively all these countries and their culture. And since that, we initiated this project. Annually, we celebrate the national days of the countries, which is very important because these are the projects of cultural diplomacy. And they are free of any politics, any political points, and they're just filled with these humanitarian issues. And we're ready to share our experience with other institutions, how we organize these national days, because everybody would like to share this initiative. Because the national days in every country, you name it, in the East, in the Asia, in the Middle East region, in the African region, you can take advantage of it as the great information reason for promoting its culture and history, and we're ready to share that experience. Our events usually supported by the embassies, and they bring together the diasporas and communities, the academia, students and scholars who study these countries, and we can see what are the space for the improvement, because every institution is involved in different areas, and we bringing them together, we see the gaps that we can address. I'd like to enumerate several issues from the short list. And I would like to thank His Excellency Gabriel Anisa Kachofa, because we are fully aligned in the way we approach and the way we see it, because he announced major points in his presentation. So major things that I'd like to mention. So we work in Russia together with Africa inside a country, and Россотрудничество is working with their countries outside Russia, with our foreign counterparts and foreign representatives. And we see that in the country, there is we're missing these programs that could bring together specifically for the people coming from the Middle East and the African countries. And it's important to bring them on board, because that's how we have a chance to learn directly about the culture of these countries, which is very beneficial to students, Russian students studying international relations and languages. But it's also good, it's also an opportunity to share our culture with the students, with the foreign students, that in the future will be the barrier. They will carry this information, which is really important, because they will disseminate the knowledge about Russia. And sooner or later, these young people will become a truly elite of their countries. And it's very important to work with them intensively, to share that knowledge with them, to establish these friendly relations with them. And it's also this HR, it has huge HR potential, because if we want to work with Africa, it's important for us to train our human resources from these countries, to train them here on site. And it's important to provide some impetuses to give the students a chance to work in our country. And after finishing their education, they can leave the country, going back to their states, share that knowledge there. They are also carrying the information about our country, which is very important, as we know that information representation and the media promotion and media coverage is way much weaker compared to the countries where they have these informational agenda is quite powerful and quite strong. Secondly, of course, we would like to bring the knowledge about the African cultures and languages to a more open and publicly open level. Currently, it's very narrow and elitarian sphere, and we spare no efforts in when we finally have the online opportunities to speak more and share more knowledge about the languages and give opportunities for such meetings. And of course, we would like to have more support because unfortunately, we still have a major focus on European languages because the East, the Oriental languages and African languages are so much interesting and unique because they are important by itself, because they give a chance to immerse into different mentality or different culture through which we can learn even more about our own Russian culture. Yeah, I'll just try to put it shortly. And I'd like to say that we have a lot of our compatriots and our graduates and as an international expert, and now that they have a good memory and the person representing the culture, I think it would be good to revive some of the institutions that we have. The radio Voice of Freedom that was broadcasting in the African continent, and some different catalogs, and the evenings or the friendship sessions where we could share our expertise. And of course, we're missing these opportunities for disseminating of knowledge, the knowledge about Africa. It's not just a knowledge about the country and about the continent. It's reference to the basic knowledge what civilization is, because it's not only about the economy and the countries that are called we used to call to third countries, third world countries. They're, at the end of the day, they are the cradle of the whole humanity and the whole mankind, and it's important to know more about that. Here in KFU, we have the expo covering different publications and different books, and these events will be here till the end of November at the edge of Christian Ecumena that are focused on Ethiopian heritage and legacy as the land where Christianity was actually incepted and continued its way. And we, as part of this exhibition, trying to organize enlightenment sessions or campaigns. So days of the Western civilizations following the sacred places or the Gospels geographical locations. Many students lack that knowledge that specifically in these lands we see the birth of the global religions, and civilization itself originally came from that region. On our behalf, with the experience that we have, we're ready to share it with all the institutions. Thank you very much again for the invitation and for everything that you're doing so far. Thank you very much, colleagues from Kazan Federal University. No, thank you. I have to apologize for interrupting our speakers, but we are terribly behind the time schedule. Of course, Tatiana has a lot to say, a lot to share, because this person, she's doing a tremendous work focused on Africa and its legacy and heritage. Thank you very much for that exhibition. And the exhibition came here. We received very important people who are here with us. And I do hope that, Tatiana, if you have a mic, you can mention, or you can come up here. So, can I just take a few minutes just to give some more information about that, please? Not to stand with my back turned to the audience. So this exhibition is represented by Andrei Sitnikov and Maxim Polyalog. And probably that would be the final point of my presentation focused on culture, because that's just amazing exhibition that was collected during the 12 years of trips to Ethiopia, and it's following the museum principle. We conducted huge research, and it was prepared by enthusiasts, and we're so happy that there are some cultural institutions. We're so happy to become the mediator for this exhibition and the wider audience and would like to enjoy this, the public or state support. And as Anna Alexeyevna mentioned in the beginning, these cultural projects at the track of Russia Africa, they're quite often organized thanks to the enthusiasm and commitment and even money of these people. And we see how much it is popular and how rewarding it is and how it is accepted by young people and older people. You'll have a chance to know more about it at the exhibition and with the Maxim and Andrei. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to top up my own presentation. Thank you very much, Tatiana. Colleagues, I would like to give the round of applause, despite we're all tired. Andrei Yurich and Maxim Yurich are amazing enthusiasts that are on the shoulders of which who carry that burden, not a burden, but that high mission of promoting that cooperation that will actually foster thanks to the support of many other stakeholders. These people are true treasure, true wealth of our nation. And our next speaker, first and foremost, is associated with the one that knows all the subtlety, all the nuances of the national protocol of African countries and the etiquette and the specificity of diplomatic negotiations and relations that are involved in these countries. I would like to give the floor to Galina Sidorova, who represents Diplomatic Academy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Institute for African Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Doctor of Political Sciences. She is the person who's truly the role model, who is a symbol for me, who's an institution. Colleagues, good afternoon. And I would like to say that Kazan Federal University has always organized all the events at a very high level.
I'm really sorry that I cannot join the work of the conference today, but my heart and my soul are with you today. So Africa is rich in a number of languages, cultures, and there are more than 1 billion people living on that continent. More than 400 ethnic groups live on the continent, and all these, as we know from our experience, help us to develop cooperation in numerous fields, because good personal relations can help to develop cooperation in business and economics, politics, and it's obvious that we can help each other in different spheres, develop digital solutions. And Russia is a reliable partner. And for example, in this difficult era, Russia is working hard in developing a number of vaccines, also against Ebola. 2021 is a very hard year for many people. We all faced the challenges stayed by the pandemic, and personally, I found out how hard it is to work and live when you have certain healthy issues. Now we got wonderful news that the vaccine against the malaria was approved by the World Health Organization, and not so long time ago, the World Health Organization recommended the vaccine developed by Russia. And it's a great pleasure to admit that issues related to the African countries are more and more often covered in a number of conferences and forums organized in Russia. The same I can say about the African countries. Unfortunately, school children, both in Russia and in African countries, do not know a lot about our countries. So that's why it's really important not to develop only internet cooperation, but to also implement radio channels on the territory of the African continent. And I'm glad to see that Russia and Africa are moving closer to each other, and it's very important to follow the pace that have developed already. We have to find solutions for our problems together to open and develop new niches and develop cooperation in many other fields. Thank you, Galina, and I would like to thank you all, dear colleagues, for your patience, first of all. And first of all, I would like to thank Galina for being that patient. She had to wait for her turn. And I would like to add that it was a wonderful way to complete our session. We were not able to follow the timeline of our conference, so I would like to postpone the beginning of the next session. Let's start it at 1:30 p.m. And I would like to remind you that we have a wonderful exhibition devoted to Ethiopia, and you have a chance to visit this exhibition. And also we'll have a number of sessions at 4 p.m. I have already said that, but I would like to remind that at 4 p.m. We will have a roundtable discussion aimed at political cooperation of Russia and Africa. And tomorrow we will have the Olympiad for school children and students. So now we have a lunch break. Thank you so much.
شكرا لك يا حبيبتي. ميرسي ميرسي، ممتازة جدا جدا، معلومة مفيدة جدا. للأسف بصراحة مش كله فاهمين، ولذلك أنا كنت يعني لا أنا قررت شوية، أنا قررت